Hi, Tanveer. Welcome to Dance Dialogues.
Hi, B. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing? How has these last 3 months under lockdown panned out for you?
I've been doing okay. Pretty good now. Actually, when the lockdown started, I was just coming back from India, like quite literally. Like I left India on March 15th. So I came back and I was directly on like a 14-day quarantine and like fully locked down and isolated. So it was I would be lying if I said that it wasn't rough. Those first 14 days of, already being away from home and then coming back and then, being isolated to the guest room.
Right.
But that when I could like breathe the air again and I could step out a little bit, things got better. Yeah, but yeah, we're in a good place right now. Better.
Okay. And you have been working, you have been rehearsals, long distance. How is it working? All your work that has obviously gotten rescheduled and redesigned, perhaps.
Yes. Yes. I I've been really fortunate to be a part of works and processes that have continued to take place online, which I know that not everybody has the privilege of, and I'm really thankful that whoever I'm associated with right now has had those resources, because that's let young independent artists like myself like continue to work and to um, fend for themselves. So yeah, I've been rehearsing. I've started teaching a bit online as well. I'm taking classes with Sandhya, my Guruji, and I'm also just doing other things in terms of like just like working on myself. So I've taken up a Mohiniyattam class with our very own Hari from Toronto. I've gotten back into Kalari with the Vikas Gurkalji in Kerala and Brandy Leary, and I'm also working on like like Tal Vidya, so like just like Tal, the expansion of the knowledge of Hindustani classical music. And yeah, so I've been trying to keep busy in those ways and like continue working and continue growing in terms of like as as somebody who is learning but also as a professional. So working and learning is kind of what I've been working on right now.
That's
Yeah.
very inspiring to hear, because especially at a time like this when lots are up in the air, it's very easy to feel demotivated, and you seem far.
I mean, I would be lying if I said that I was not demotivated. Of course I was. Um, initially, like I remember feeling like I don't have access to a studio, coming from a place where I was going to a studio every single day and spending all day, and then I don't have access to a studio. I don't have access to peers. I don't have access to just like the simple thing of other dancing bodies and dancing with people again, and then the reality of it sunk in, of like what is the situation that we're in right now, and how do we move forward from it, or what do I do to feel well within it. And so yeah, and right now I'm in a place where I feel like I'm doing things that feel true to me and feel like are helping me grow emotionally, internally. But I think there was definitely like a graph and a path to it. Like it wasn't like I won't just say that I just from day one I was motivated to take over the world.
Speaking about
Yeah.
your growth during this phase, Tanvi, let's retrace a few steps and briefly tell us your trajectory since you moved from Montreal after your high school and came to the School of TDT, and what that journey's been like, how different being an artist of, South Asian origin, practicing a classical art form in the diaspora, what the challenges were, what the differences were moving from Montreal to Toronto, and maybe if you can give us a picture of what your training was like in India and how that's different or not different from what goes on with your training in homegrown Canada. Tell us a little about that. Flashback.
Uh, yeah. What better time? I moved to Toronto 4 years years ago now, actually. 4 years ago, to join the School of Toronto Dance Theatre, and I entered the professional training program, which is a training program based in modern as well as Western contemporary dance. And I had done a little bit while I was in high school of like, Limon technique and some ballet and, all of those things. But I decided that I wanted to put myself in an institution where I was being worked on as a dancer every single day. And, grow within like what the understanding of my body is and like what the dancing body is. And obviously that's still a work in progress. I'm still figuring those things out for myself, but I wanted to be in a situation where I had eyes on me every single day so that I could, professionally pursue this, because I knew from, I wouldn't say a very young age, but I knew from quite a while by then that I wanted to pursue dance professionally and I wanted to make a career out of this. And luckily enough, I had parents who supported that as well. So I kind of went and dove into the deep end and just went for it. So yeah, I did that. I did my 3 years of your tendus and your plies and your Graham contractions and all the leaps and all the turns and the pirouettes. And I was still doing Kathak simultaneously because my Guruji Sandhya Desai is based in Mississauga. And so I would hop on the GO train on the weekends and go do Kathak. But once I graduated, I decided that I wanted to take actual dedicated time for Kathak. And because not that it was on the back burner, but it just, I was dancing, I was doing Western contemporary dance full time for every single day for 3 years. And as much as I was still performing and I was still learning and practicing, I couldn't give it the attention that I wanted to give it, the dedication and the full commitment that I wanted to also give Kathak. And so I decided that I was going to take this year to work on that, and I was going to go to India, spend some time with a mentor, and do my tatkar and my chakkars and practice my toras and my tala every single day for as long as I can. And basically understand where Kathak is in India right now, because I'm really fortunate to have been blessed to have teachers that have taught me really genuinely and that have, taught me what their understandings of the form is, about their understanding of the and so I've been blessed with really great training, even in North America. But it was always clear to me, and it was also always made clear to me that there were some things that I would understand far better once I was in India. And whether that's socially,
right, culturally,
emotionally, physically, there were just things culturally, there are just things that are so innately South Asian that a Montrealer who whose first language was Bengali but then spoke French better than he spoke English for a very long time, and then Hindi would not understand as truly as somebody who spent their whole life in India. And I realized when I was there this time, just the simple action of seeing how two people converse, how does that how do two people interact? What is the dynamic? When you're doing this, in Kathak, you're aa jao yahan pe, that situation, what does that actually look like when I see two people do it? And I'm not just imitating my guru who has experienced that in her real life. But for me, it's an imitation. I've never been hey, Sarah, come over here. I've never felt it in that way. But to see two people actually interact in that way, changes the way you envision things. And furthermore, like any art form, Kathak is continuously evolving. And to see how the young practitioners in India are carrying forward the form while maintaining its classicism and its core aspects, but taking it forward into a space that is theirs, that is no longer a thing of the past. Like it's becoming a new thing as well. That was really enriching and enlivening for me to experience that, and for me to learn from somebody who is really current at the moment, and to see the treatment that that Kathak is being given in India. So it was important for me to have like a really holistic understanding of the work that I make and the work that I'm as well.
I remember you mentioned how actually playing Holi in India and how that was different from, enacting a Holi scene.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I've never experienced Holi in Montreal or Toronto. I've never been in any of those contexts. And like even just a simple thing of like putting like gulal on somebody, like I didn't even know how that
the texture felt,
powder felt, like I didn't even know what that felt like. Texture felt like, exactly. So for me to even experience that and be like, oh, so when I'm doing this, I can actually now have this sensory idea of what that actually is, which, it's beautiful to be like, oh, metaphorically, I know what this feels like, but the act of actually doing it is something that's irreplaceable, Yeah.
So like you said, you're very fortunate to be able to do this in India and be in that immersive environment to better your practice and your craft. What would your advice be, or what would your message be for artists in Canada, practicing Kathak? And what do you aspire for the art itself in the North American context?
Yeah, I guess my advice for artists who are practicing Kathak or any South Asian classical dance form, or any South Asian dance form in general, forget classical, is I would just say, really be true to what it is that you do. Be really honest. Don't try to. I'm nobody to say to like not try anything, but I can see myself, and I try to not, compare myself to any other form, or compare what my dance form does to any other form. And I try to stay true to what the basis of my style is, even when I'm talking about it to other people, or when I'm applying for grants, or when I'm presenting myself and my work in the world, or if I'm presenting Kathak in the world. I really try to talk about what is Kathak, not trying to compare it to anything else, not trying to situate it in terms of like, I should also have a place. I think that it should. I think what I think is more valuable is to be like, there is a place for it. What it needs to do is grow. It needs to emerge. There is a place, because if there wasn't a place, then we wouldn't be practicing the form. Right. And I think that is more powerful than to advocate for, why is it not at the same place? Because it's true, it is not at the same place as a lot of other forms. We're not necessarily always in the mainstream dance sectors, but I think that the work is in acknowledging that, and then seeing what we can do to get ourselves at that point, while still staying true to the form and not comparing us to other things. So I think that's something to that's something that I follow. That's something that I try to follow. I'm not going to say that it's not challenging. I'm realizing that your question before also asked me like what the challenges were, and I went into my whole like analogy of what being in India was. But I think that, like, to connect it to that, I feel like it can be really challenging to like, it's for me for sure, when I was like doing all of my like Western contemporary dance practice, which is still there, but like, and when I was trying to also keep Kathak alive within me, it's a lot of work to for yourself to justify, like, what do you do for this art form? What do you bring to it? It takes a lot of work, and that's really challenging. That's something that Kumiben had actually once brought up. She was like you can talk about being a servant and being a humble like observer of this art form and being a dancer of it for many years, but what do you actually bring to it? Like, why does Kathak need you? There are thousands of dancers that are practicing the form, but why does it need you? And I think that is a really challenging question for yourself, but it's also really important to be like, and I think that has inspired me to really like hold up a front and be like, you know what? For me, Kathak is about a community that I wish I have. It's a community that I want to to bring forward and I want to show the excellence of. And then from there, I'm like, you know what? I want to show the excellence of all of our South Asian dance community and the youth that exist in it and the emerging artists that exist in it. Because like there is such a gap, unfortunately, in terms of like, you know, like my generation and artists that are, you know, senior to us. There isn't somebody that we could directly look up to in our Canadian dance experience as diasporic Indian classical or South Asian artists. And I sometimes wonder if you know, if we were all more, if we all were given the opportunity to have that, would we have a better answer to be like, okay, this is why I practice this, and because of this, now I know my place within what I do,
Right.
you know, and if you know your place, then you can establish space for more people. I think, at least that's how I feel. I feel like not knowing more comfortably, like my identity as an emerging artist who was, you know, who was practicing an Indian classical dance form and who was trying to bring other people and other dancers with me so that we can all work in the space together. I think now I feel like I can you know, tally more of my friends together, and we can all, you know, celebrate the excellence that is South Asian art forms.
Right. And I think you know, you're an incredibly gifted dancer, and you're certainly a poster child for emerging South Asian dancers in Canada and even globally. I mean, I see all the activity on social media and how artists are tagging you, or you know, how your videos have inspired them, and it's incredible, Tanveer. I mean, considering how you've just graduated and you're just stepping into the, you know, the mainstream dance scene professionally. The trajectory has been very, very impressive, and having seen you work at close quarters, I know how dedicated you are, and it really is a delight to see you at work and hear you speak like this. My you know, concluding question would be, how are you do you foresee changes happening to the way we practice the form, considering we're moving into this phase where everything's changed, the whole world has been brought to its knees? We're talking through these little boxes, we're performing over these little, you know, phones and doing Insta lives. Live performance has changed texture, looking at what a virtual event would feel like, what an audience would, you know, what is an audience's attention span, lots of things. Have you put some thought in? Have you wondered how you're going to navigate that?
Yeah. I'm constantly wondering, actually. I think, and it's crazy to see also how much it's evolved from like the beginning of the virtual performances and like where we are right now with them, you know? But I mean, I can speak from my experiences. I quite quickly when I came back, did a live performance through the NAC Performs platform. And I remember, first of all, just being like, how do I even approach this? Like, I don't even understand. And like, for somebody who was like, as you were telling me, I am not millennial, I am Gen Z. For somebody who was Gen Z, I'm really, really bad with like anything that's related to the internet or social media. Like just recently, I've kind of started using it a bit more, but you know, like I'm somebody who doesn't even like enjoy shopping online. Like that to me is like, I feel like that's unapproachable in a lot of ways. I'm like, I don't trust it. And so for me to be like, okay, I need to do a full performance and share my craft with people online was really frightening initially. But I realized that that what's really important is that we take it step by step. Like everything is truly a moment for us to learn. And what I learned from this first live stream was that, really simply, don't put black behind you if you're going to wear a red costume. You won't see the costume super well. Like quite literally, as simply as that. Like that was the first learning. Like 2, make sure your sound is much clearer. You're gonna need louder speakers.
I feel like your frame today. This is really grand. Your frame today is really grand. Back backdrop and the white kurta. It reminds me of a Bajirao Mastani shot. And your love for Bollywood.
Great love for Bollywood. I want to aspire to reach that level of film, you know? I can't even imagine how Sanjay Leela Bansali would do a virtual film. Could you imagine? Like him shooting Padmavati from like everyone's homes. I could imagine it, honestly. Padmavat, sorry, it's not Padmavati. But no, like just things like that, learning about like how, like I realized that, you know, like the sound quality could have been better and there are ways to fix those things. And so I think there are steps to these learnings. So there are the small learnings of like actually how do you improve a virtual presentation, but also I think what I'm trying to figure out more truly is how do I keep the work that I do a live art? Because at the end of the day, dance is a live art. You know, we are performance artists that thrive on the interaction that we have with our audiences. It's about that circular relationship. It's about that transmission of energy.
Yeah.
That is like so, like, you know, particularly South Asian. That is so rich in the way that we treat our form, even theoretically, you know. And so I think what I'm working on right now is figuring out how do I still keep that transmission alive? How do I move away from the facade of dancing to a screen? Yeah. Because right now what's happening is we are being faced with an image of ourselves every time we're dancing. We're not seeing people anymore. What we're seeing is a version of ourselves, or we're seeing the head of a camera, you know? And that is a completely different thing. And so what is that medium? And so I'm wondering also, like, are we becoming how is it abhinay and not, you know, an actor's piece? Like, what is that relationship now? Like, what does that mean? Of like is it am I acting now? Am I an actor? I mean, like, you're an actor as a dancer, but in terms of like, am I like, what is like how do I keep it alive in terms of like, even if I'm portraying character, I'm doing it for a selection of people. I'm doing it for, you know, for an audience that I'm not you know, being like faced with. So I think like there's so much like learning, and there's so much that I'm still trying to figure out through all of this. But these are kind of the questions that have emerged for me, just in the few kind of things that I've done. Also, how do I make sure that all my limbs are in one frame as I'm dancing? Like, really simply, like for like even just a simple video, like how do I see? Or also, and that's the other thing. Now we have the choice. We have the choice of how do we want to be seen? There are some things that you can't control in a live performance. Like you can't control from what angle the audience is seeing you, but now I can decide where I put my camera.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, what are we accountable for in terms of the decisions that we're making for audience members? That is also a big thing that I'm like, oh, I suddenly have all this power, like, in like, which is like, you know, a heavy word, but like I suddenly have all this, like, I decide the fate of this performance in a lot of different ways that I can't truly do if I was, you know, that was a loaded answer. I feel like I did a lot of like going back and forth, but
it goes back to what I've been thinking about, how we've all got to pull up our socks and hone new skills, you know, new skill sets for this new world. It could, from dancing to placing, you know, camera angles, to figuring out to what switches to make between these cameras. If you're having more than one, how close do they need to see me? Do I want them to see me? And also even even digital platforms, and understanding what the digital platform and how works, and how to take advantage of it for your own good, and not falling into that trap of oversaturating the social, you know, media world with yourself, right? Because there's a deal of that happening as well. Unless you're the Akram Khan, and we can never get enough watching a Maven Koo, and you know, but we're all aspiring to get there, right? So yeah, it's just the whole model is evolving or molding in new ways, and there's something new I'm learning every day, either with a conversation through a conversation with an artist or something online and being totally inspired. There was a video of a dance piece I saw recently where there are about 20 Zoom video windows. It's one Zoom call clearly, and they're actually choreographing a little piece where it just looks incredible. It's incredible, and everyone. And this piece has happened. So I was talking to a colleague of mine. And we were thinking about how about if there were 20 Bharatanatyam dancers and Bharatanatyam, because we do Bharatanatyam and doing Tirumana Madava, going one after the other, and it would look spectacular, So it's also about how you create and what you're creating and how you're going to tell your stories, your dance stories. Moving.
What's that? Now that I'm waiting for that video, I want to see this now. I want to come for that dance creation.
Where you find inspiration from, right? It could be a poem, it could be another dance piece. So thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning. I know you're in classes from learning to teaching, and this has been an absolute pleasure. And I know I haven't seen you in a while, so a big virtual hug. It's been a few months.
Yes.
I think. Yes.
Oh, it's been a while. It's been quite a while.
Worked on Mandala.
Months, I think, at this point.
Easily, yeah.
A big hug to you, obviously, always. Thank you so much.
Wonderful to see how you've embraced what's going on around you. And I know it's difficult for you because you're far away from the rest of your friends. We're all mostly in Toronto, your dance friends. And we know how challenging that can be. But stay well, be safe, and keep dancing and continuing to do the inspiring work you do, Tanveer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you so much. I know we have the energies are still being transmitted in all the right ways. It's always it's always there. Yeah. So it's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.